All right, so you can see in this one, this is kind of a nightmare. There are a bajillion trees surrounding this house. This is very common in places like Oregon and North Carolina. You'll find these houses that are just encircled about by a forest of trees. Now, I'm not going to lie, in these cases, you are going to have to draw quite a few trees. However, there's certain times where it's not going to be as bad as it looks. So I'll kind of show you what I'm talking about here. Hopefully you've got LiDAR when you're working on these. That helps out a lot so you don't have to do so much guesswork. When it's a lot of trees like this, some people like to switch the LiDAR from point cloud to mesh. They'd say that you can kind of see the trees a little bit more clearly individually where they are. And you do whatever works for you. If you feel that same way, definitely use the mesh to draw out your forest of trees better. I'm going to stick with the point cloud, but you do whatever works for you. There's no right or wrong answer on that one. To make things go a little bit faster, I actually like to just draw all of them out first from the 2D view from the top down. So what I'll do is I'll turn on LiDAR first, kind of look around, get a general sense of which area of trees I'm going to need to draw, which ones are tall enough in what areas. In this case, it's pretty much all of them. So I'm going to turn off LiDAR. Right now, we're just going to draw this first row of trees around the home in kind of a circle. You're just going to try and do your best to figure out where each individual tree is. Make sure all the branches of that tree are included in your tree drawing. If there's kind of a shaded area and you're not sure if there's trees there, turn on LiDAR and see if you're picking up anything. It looks like that area is empty, so we'll keep going here. You can see here where those branches are sticking over the roof in the image. We want to make sure that those branches are included in our tree drawing. Now remember, there's kind of that imaginary line just north of the home where everything above that you don't need to draw, but everything below that that's taller than the house, you do. So you have this little tree with the more reddish leaves here that is a lot shorter than the other trees, but it looks like it still covers the home. You can definitely see those branches sticking over it a bit, so we're definitely going to draw that one. And as you can tell, this is going to take a little bit of time. Drawing trees can be the longest part of the pre-design process. Now that we've kind of got that first row of trees around the house done, all you really need to do now is just kind of fill in the gaps. Especially if it's a just really dense forest and it's hard to tell where each individual tree starts and ends. You're actually just going to go through and fill in the gaps like this. Kind of the edge where the two trees in the front row meet, you're going to put a tree behind them in that little crevice there. So in those cases where it's hard to tell individual trees, once you finish that second row, and as long as there's not taller trees behind that two rows of trees, you can be done at that point. But sometimes the trees do get taller and taller the further back they go in some forests, so just make sure to watch for that, and you'll have to make a judgment call on how far back you need to go on which trees are tall enough to cause a problem. But since in this image I can tell a lot better where the individual trees are, I'm going to go back, delete this second row I've done, and actually draw these out. So here's a good example to show you. You can see that this tree only goes to about these dots right here, and this tree behind it is much taller. So I'm going to go ahead and draw both of them. So now that you have them all drawn out, you have a couple options. You can go one by one. You can be like, okay, this tree, it's going to be this tall. It's going to be crossing LiDAR about there. And a general rule of thumb for trees like this, when you know that they're very tall and they have a very long base, you just kind of look at the number in the height box, and you can just make the crown height number about 5 to 10 feet shorter or less than that number. You can see that the height is about 134 feet, so I'm just going to type in the crown height box 128 feet. Now I'm going to widen the diameter so it matches LiDAR a bit better. And there's one tree. Now you can go through and do each of those just like that individually, and that would be super accurate. It would be a little bit time consuming though. A way to make it go a little bit faster is to kind of find groups where the trees are showing a similar height than LiDAR. So hold shift and start selecting multiple trees at once. Then raise the height of all of them at once to kind of match up to where LiDAR says kind of the average height of all of those are. You're just going to make small adjustments to each individual tree until it's kind of more in the ballpark of where LiDAR says each one is. You can find the ones that are really close in height, and then you can just make the crown height the same for all of them. It doesn't have to be exact, it just has to be pretty similar for that crown height. So these 4 trees are similar enough, I'll make these the same. But this one over here is a bit taller, so I'll have to do this one individually. Since the height is about 137, I'll make the crown height about 125. So I'll kind of speed this up here so you can see the process a little bit faster, as well as see the end product. So you can see once again, I'm just selecting groups of trees, adjusting the height of all of them at once, and then individually going through, in some cases in groups doing the crown height, but just making it go a little bit faster by doing it in groups. Okay, so here's what it looks like when it's all done. You can definitely tell right now that this house is not going to get a lot of sunlight because it is just surrounded by a wall of trees. If we check the LiDAR, we can see that everything's matching up pretty good there. And yeah, it looks like we're done here.